start watching Chef's Table until this most recent season.
There's one about tacos. The Taco Chronicles.
There is one. I'm gonna watch
I've
that. No,
heard
yeah,
it's
that's a new
good,
show on
though.
Netflix. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to. But no, I didn't watch Chef's Table until this most recent season because it was the first time that I had noticed that they had a black chef or a black female chef on the show. Mashama Bailey, she's the first episode of season 6, which is this most recent one. But you go down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
All the way down to season 1. And so, yeah, there's like that one, like those last 3 or 4 seasons, and then there's one that's specifically about pastries, which I'm pretty sure I didn't watch most of those.
I don't really care about pastries, so.
But there's one good one to watch from that season, and I think her name is Christina Tosi. She owns Milk Bar. I don't know if you've ever heard of Milk Bar.
No.
It's basically this little place where she sells like cereal milk, ice cream, and like all these other things. People I know that have been there said it's really good. I don't know, but anyway.
Just good soy milk.
No,
Like, that's just.
it's just all desserts. It's all just anyway. Okay.
You know what? And this is why people this is why people don't respect millennials.
I'm not
or
eating
Gen
it.
Z. But like, yeah, this is, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Because people will spend money on cereal milk.
Well, they're not buying the cereal milk. She uses the cereal milk to make desserts.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
I was like, if people are literally going into
No.
cereal milk,
So the cereal
you should not be able to vote.
Right. No, the cereal milk thing came because she was a chef at the restaurant next door. I think it's called Momofuku or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So she used to work there, and they would do family meal, which is when some folks make food for the staff of the restaurant, and so she made she made a panna cotta because like up to this point she had been like resisting, like, no, I don't want to make anything, I don't want to put anything on the menu, whatever. And so she finally makes something, like she's forced to make something that they're going to include on the menu. And so she was like walking through a bodega or whatever, and she was in the cereal aisle, and she was like, oh, I can do something with this. So she went home, she soaked cornflakes in milk and made a panna cotta out of it. And so it was like this huge hit during family meal, and just so happened maybe a month or so later, the space beside Momofuku opened, and they didn't want it to get leased to someone else who wasn't involved with the restaurant. And so Dave, whatever his name is, he also has a show. I think it's called Ugly Delicious.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that guy, he was who owned Momofuku. He was like, you need to make the restaurant and trademark this cereal milk thing where someone tries to steal it. And so that's what she did. And so she opened this other place that basically just uses the cereal milk flavor to do desserts like ice cream and cakes and pies and all kind of other stuff. But yeah, so after I got through that season, which I'm pretty sure that's the only episode I watched of that season, then it got to like the very, very first season, because I think that's either the second or third. And then that's when I got to Dan Barber.
Okay.
That's his name. I didn't know what his name was. Dan Barber, who, so he works with this local farm, Blue Hill Stone Farms, I think.
Okay.
And so his restaurant is joined with that farm, because he was pretty much one of the first chefs recognized for doing like farm to table.
Yeah.
So even before he opened that restaurant, he only did things that were in season. And so this whole thing started because asparagus was the big crop in season that particular time of year. And so he got so mad, he was so frustrated that there was all this asparagus like in his restaurant. He was like, why do we have so much asparagus here, you guys? And so basically he made a whole like 4 or 5 course meal around asparagus. And that was the day that some restaurant critic came in and he was like, oh my God, this is gonna be terrible. We're not gonna get a good review, whatever. Turns out, boom, loved it. And so when we think about like, or when folks at that time thought about farm to table, he was the guy that they thought about. And so then, it kind of pushed him into looking at how do we as chefs and restaurateurs and restaurant owners work with farmers, one, to make them more money if they're not growing corn, wheat, or soy, but also make food that tastes better, because
it's actually in season.
Exactly. So. And, the reality is if you don't have good grass, if you don't have someone on your farm who knows about grass, nothing ever from your farm is going to be as good as it could be.
Yeah.
So he started working with all these farmers, one, to build his menu, but also to create new, modifications of vegetables that we know to make the best possible menu he could. And so the example that I was talking about earlier, Well, two things. One, so, butternut squash is like this huge squash. It's about, a foot long in most cases.
Hard as hell to cut through.
Basically.
Yeah.
And so he was like, butternut squash. We like it, but what if we could make it taste better and not waste so much of it, right? So he works with this farmer to create this breed of butternut squash that's maybe a third of the size. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 inches high.
Okay.
That has a much sweeter, more robust flavor. When you cook it, it tastes better. It has less water, so you can do more with it. And so, again, he's sort of changing how we think about agriculture and how it not only relates to our health, but also we want to eat more healthy because the food tastes better.
It's like the idea behind like dry aging a steak.
Yes.
Like the reason why you dry age a steak is because you want the moisture to go out of the
What
steak.
is dry aging?
Yeah. So you say,
What is it?
So I don't know if you've ever,
Yes,
if you go to like Whole Foods and you look behind it,
They just say,
you're familiar that there's a place called Whole Foods. And in Whole Foods they sell food. There's a meat counter.
Whole?
whole.
But like you'll look behind and there'll be sometimes like these like big steaks or whatever. They weren't steaks. It's actually like the
Cow.
the rib where it's coming from, and it looks like almost a little rotten. Or you go to like a steakhouse and sometimes they'll show it and it's kind of rotten. Well, basically what they do is a regular way of dry aging the steak is you take it, you put it in this climate controlled room where air is allowed to hit it and kind of dry it out, and basically the moisture leaves the steak. It does get some kind of like funky type stuff on the outside, but it's not it's not bad.
Yeah.
But what it does is it takes the moisture out, so it intensifies the actual flavor. They then will like cut off the ends of that, like the bad part, and then it's a steak that's a little bit more like, beefy and intense with its flavor. So it sounds like it's the same kind of.
It's like you see this process with a lot of food, like a lot of what we would consider like artisan foods, like cheese.
Yeah.
They age cheese in the same way, right? So, if you have a really young wheel of cheese, for example, like Parmesan, you have a really young wheel of Parmesan, it tastes different than one that has been there for, 6 months, 8
Because
months.
of the water and.
Right. So you eat a young piece of cheese and you can, like, it's not bitter. That's not the word I'm thinking of. It's brighter. Like, it's a more vibrant taste, I guess. That's the only way I can describe it. But you eat an aged cheese, it's creamy. You can taste the crystals of the science.
Yeah. But anyway, you were saying the butternut squash.
Right. Right. And so then I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, because science, I don't understand it, but I understand food, and I understand what makes food taste better. And so then there was this other part of the episode where he was at a different farm, and the farmer was asking him, like, well, he asked, what is this whole thing about, like, that you're doing here, giving chickens peppers? Like, why are you doing that? That's weird. I don't understand why that's, like, the main part of their diet here. And so what the farmer was saying is, like, in terms of evolution, chickens, and I don't know if there's other poultry that's included in this, but chickens specifically, they have evolved to not taste capsaicin. That doesn't register with their body. So the thing that makes peppers hot, they don't experience that. So if we're looking at all the possible things a chicken could eat, we have an opportunity to get creative with how we feed our chickens and what the result of that might be. And so with that particular situation, you give the chickens the peppers, the red peppers, the orange peppers, yellow peppers, and what you get is a really red egg yolk, right? So there's this creativity behind cooking, right? And so it makes me think about this quote that a lot of people use from Michael Pollan that says, we hear the age-old adage, like, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you are what you eat eats. And so that's a really good example of that. Like, yeah, we eat the chicken, we go to the grocery store, we see the egg yolk is yellow, but you go to a farm, you get an egg, the yolk is much darker, right? But in this situation, a very big example, and a visual example is my chicken ate peppers. Now the egg yolk is red.
What is the purpose of the egg yolk being red?
Just for visual effect.
Oh, just.
Yeah, so
literally
again,
creative.
like, Dan Barber has this idea of, like, people will, like, obviously, people who can afford to,
Yeah.
but people who are excited about the way their food looks and the way their food tastes, that's the thing we hear all the time about eating healthy. Oh, the food is bland.
Yeah.
I don't want to eat that. But if you get people excited by using these different creative methods that not only benefit them because it's healthier for them, but benefit the farmers who are doing, being creative with how they're breeding their food, then those who can afford it are eating well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also like visually, it plays a part. Like, what was this? I think it's Food Fact or Fiction. One of them. It was one of those shows where they actually took a cake. It was a vanilla cake, and they just used different icing. So they had like a green icing, a white icing, a brown icing, and like a red icing. It's the same cake. It was just food coloring. They changed the color, and you would have people that would eat this cake and would go, "Oh, this is more of a kind of an apple-y such and such." And like, "Oh, this is like a chocolate." It's like, no, it's a vanilla cake. But it was like, and when they blindfolded folks, they would eat the cake and go like, "Oh, this is basically the same." But because they could see it in their mind, it tasted different. So I mean,
Yeah.
visually that does play a difference. But I'm curious to know like what feeding peppers to chickens does to the taste.
I just feel like
Apparently nothing.
See,
to the
that's
taste
weird.
of the chicken.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
To the chicken?
yeah.
Oh, I don't know. They didn't use it. They didn't talk about the chicken itself. They
Yeah.
only talked about the eggs.
Because
So
if
I
you think
don't
about
know.
like grass-fed beef
Yeah.
or like like really really good prosciutto,
Mhm.
like they will they'll have the pigs eat like
Acorns.
walnuts and stuff and acorns.
Yeah.
So like, and the idea is that
I wonder.
it affects the taste. So I'm wondering like, should Bojangles start buying?
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
they do.
Pepper-fed chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know. I'd be interested to read more about that because he didn't say, like I said, he didn't say much about the actual chicken itself in the dish that they used in the restaurant. It was just like the egg was
Yeah.
like the thing.
And if eating it, if they are eating enough peppers to where it has actually changed, like the reproductive system, which it's the egg, like that seems like you're not just eating grain or crickets and worms and a few
If you
peppers.
think
Like,
about
you're
it,
probably eating a
though,
lot.
like if we eat asparagus, your pee smells.
That's
so
true.
It
We don't
could
have
just
to
be
eat
that.
all the time.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Or like if you take a pill and your pee is a different color, which happens
Real.
often whenever you're like.
Hashtag Pepto
Taking.
Well, your pee's not different color.
Well, I mean, just like medication. Some medication
Mhm.
will like change that, but
Yeah,
it do nothing.
that seems interesting. I would be curious to find out like.
I do follow him on Instagram. I'm gonna Google it, but that was like years ago. I'll see what I can find and I'll report back. But one thing that I was thinking about and that I think about a lot when, I watch things like this is we have such a visual attachment to what food is.
Oh yeah.
And like how we think food tastes, right? And so I think a lot about chefs that are using traditional like ingredients to make this really fancy,
Yeah.
food. So I was telling you all the other day, I was reading the article in New York Times about the 16 black chefs that are changing
Yeah.
the face of food, or I don't know what word they use, but they're changing food, right?
Yeah.
And so, actually one chef in Asheville is included in that list. I want to say her name is Ashley Santi. She's the chef over at Benny on Eagle.
Yeah.
And, there's, this idea of what we consider Southern staples, right? Like Hoppin' John.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like country ham and all these other things that,
We're not gravy. Yeah.
right, that to us are like these really humble things, and like that's our
It's
that's
like
our
poor.
soul
It's
food.
poor man's food. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you see all of these chefs who are taking these ingredients that are a part of ours and others, cultural heritage, and making them into something that people with money
It's like high-end,
essentially
yeah.
It's a
would
little high
eat.
class.
Yeah.
Right. And so like there's this distance between like, oh, this is soul food that's gonna kill you, it's so high in fat
Yeah.
and whatever, to now, oh my God, these black eyed peas.
Yes.
This like I thought about it because one of the things that they have over at Benny on Eagle is black eyed pea hummus, and I was like, I can only imagine people
What?
going up
Oh
in
my
there
God.
like, oh my God, yes, this is the future of Southern food, and I'm like, no, it's not. But I love to see that. Like I love to see chefs who are able to not only elevate but exalt these ingredients that otherwise people have like not necessarily
Yeah.
negative opinions, but they're not great,
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that'd be interesting. Like, I actually have been meaning to go there.
I'm going on my birthday.
And sometimes I just want black eyed peas.
Honestly,
Like, sometimes I just
Like
want
normal
regular.
black eyed peas.
regular
Just
black eyed peas.
yes, I want just
Mhm.
regular grits. I don't want like any type of like goat cheese or something special
No,
in there. It's like,
fancy.
nah, just give me regular
Right.
rice grits.
And that's the thing. That was one of the things actually that the article talked about is like, you don't have to elevate Black food for it to be good food and for it to be important food. Like, there are some who do that, but when they go home, they eat the cornbread.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was one of the things that Mashama Bailey talks a lot about in her episode of Chef's Table, because she's originally from Savannah.
Okay.
She moved to New York for a while, and then she came back to Savannah, and I don't know what, she's the co-founder or co-something of The Gray, which is the restaurant that she cooks at now.
Okay.
You know, and so she goes on to talk about, again, the same idea of like elevating these ingredients, but also keeping the integrity of that food and knowing that you don't have to do that for it to be good food and for it to have meaning in your community, which I think is the more important thing. Like, my cousins probably aren't going to Benny on Eagle, but they can look at the menu and say, oh, I know what that is, and that makes you feel something. Like to see a black eyed pea on a menu and say, oh, I eat that at home.
Well, also think like it also inspires, if you cook, I think it also kind of inspires you a little bit, because like, oh yes, I grew up eating, black eyed peas, for instance, and then I go somewhere else, I'm like, oh, you did something that's a little bit different, like, that gives me an idea. I may want to try to do something a little bit different with this. So now, not that all I have access to is this one ingredient, but if it is in season, and all I have is like black eyed peas or asparagus, being able to see it done in a different way now means like I may eat black eyed peas 4 days this week, or I may eat asparagus 3 days this week, but I can do it in different ways, and I can explore like different kind of flavor profiles with it. I think like even go.
I was just thinking that's the beauty of like eggs and like potatoes. You
Honestly,
can cook them so many different ways.
Yeah.
So many options.
I made breakfast rice this morning. Like literally
I love a breakfast rice.
I had we had leftover fried rice, and then I was just like, I got like a little bit of meat, I got some eggs, I'm making breakfast rice. So I literally just made breakfast rice this morning.
Right. There was actually an episode of Chef's Table where one of the guys on there, when he was like a young chef, he got asked to participate in this contest. I forget what it was called, but it's like a real fancy schmancy thing. And he was like, yeah, nah, I'm making 12 courses, all potatoes. And they were like, no, you're not. He was like, nah, that's what I'm doing.
Watch me.
And so he basically smuggled in like 100 pounds of potatoes on the plane to wherever he was. He was like, they were like, if you come in and like choose your table set, he was like, nah, I don't want none of that. I'm putting potatoes on the table. And they were like, sir, this is a Wendy's. You're not doing it. And so he was like, no, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So he had all these beautiful, like different colored potatoes, dirt and everything, just on the table. And he won making 12 courses of potatoes. And I was like, the versatility of food.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Potatoes have been a staple in the diet of many a culture.
Also bread.
Yeah.
I wish that we would stop doing low carb things. As much as I enjoy a low carb diet, bread wheat is a part of our, historically, the thing that kept us alive.
Every culture has some form of bread.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
It's so deeply involved in culture too. It's mentioned in most religions too. Like bread is so
And that's the
that
thing.
it's that point where it's religiously almost.
Loaves and fishes, So everybody, like even back in biblical days, like somebody was at the fish fry with a piece of bread in there. Like
that's where these things come
just
from.
put it on the
bread player.
I don't know, but everybody's been at that like cookout or fish fry where it's like somebody's sitting there waiting at
Who
the
needs
grease.
a plate?
Yeah, just literally with a piece of white bread, like just put it right there.
I will get some mustard and put it on there.
There's hot sauce, but yeah.
But no, yeah. The thing that excites me about Chef's Table, and really my personal interest, particularly in Black chefs who are cooking with ingredients that are Southern, and also, in most cases, West African, is they make space for the grandmas and the aunties who, cook in their cast iron in their kitchens.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's this, I thought about it the other day when you were saying, like, who is it, Picasso?
Oh, yeah.
Who, like, I can stray away from these foundations because I know what they are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's that same idea. Like, we as in most Southern Black folks and folks who have family from the South, we learn to cook in the kitchens of our mothers, our grandmother, me and my daddy's kitchen, because he cooks at my house. And I never feel like I have to do, like, I don't need to be a French chef
Yeah.
to be able to cook good food.
Just hit him on the wall.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All of our moms,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, it gives, for me, I think that's the thing that I love about cooking and I love about food and Southern culture is like, we have made spaces for ourselves across generations to know that my grandmother was a chef, period.
Mhm.
Other people might not have called her that,
She may
but
not
I
be
know that's what she
classically
was.
trained, but
Yeah.
yes.
Exactly.
But her understanding of ingredients and technique and like all those types of, and even presentation, like it's the same type of
Right.
like thoughtfulness that goes into that you know someone who is classically trained is going to, you know.
Right. Like she didn't know the science words for
Yes.
why we
Right.
throw a
Yeah.
spaghetti noodle to the ceiling. If it sticks, it's done.
Guess
Whenever I ask her how much of a certain ingredient
Just
I need to
enough.
put in, she's like, "Oh, you
You
just
just-
throw
Yes.
it in there." Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
like she doesn't know, like she didn't know the language, but
Yes.
she knew the technique. She knew the process. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking about that in terms of social justice.
Say more.
Because people will know the language. They know the
Oh, yeah.
words, but they can't cook.
It's well, yeah, no, you're
You know
right.
what I'm saying?
Well, it's that it made me think about like critical race theory, and then there's this one of the tenets of critical race theory is like valuing the experiential knowledge of folks.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that we also often do in kind of Western culture is you have to read the books, you have to know the language, but like you don't actually, but you're not doing it.
Right.
And as opposed to, well, there's people who actually like they have experience in doing those things. They just don't necessarily have the language. And so how do you, what critical race theory would say is, how do you reframe what you value to go, nah, I'm going to value equally, if not more, this person who actually is able to come to the table with experience as I do this person who's like, you know, they talk a good game. So in the cooking example, like, oh, you can explain the science behind it. You can explain like the process and why. But if I put you in the kitchen, it's like a critic.
Yeah.
Like a food critic can talk, you know, could wax poetic about like the taste and flavor profile and like how they believe that this chef was able to cook this, but you put them in the kitchen and it tastes like trash.
Right.
So
Like
it's
they don't have the, they don't have the range, as I would call it.
Yes.